My dear friends, have you ever sat there staring at someone in your life, maybe a friend, a partner, a colleague, and thought, one day they will change and Hanan, I'll be happy. But here's the truth, that day never comes. We wait and we wait and we wait and life slips away. Waiting for people to change is like sitting at the train station with no train on the schedule. You'll grow older, you'll grow tired, but the train will never arrive. So today, let us talk about something very important. Why waiting for people to change wastes your life? And more importantly, what you can do instead. My dear friends, let's start with something very simple but very powerful. People rarely change for you. We often think, if I love them enough, if I explain it enough times, if I wait long enough, surely they will change. But life doesn't really work like that. People change only when they are ready, not when you want them to. Think about it. Have you ever tried convincing someone to quit a bad habit? Maybe it's smoking, maybe it's wasting time, maybe it's laziness. You can give them books, you can send them motivational videos, you can lecture them every single day. But until something inside them clicks, until they themselves decide, no, I want to change, nothing truly shifts. It's like trying to pull a tree out of the ground with a single hand. It won't move unless its own roots let go. We live under this illusion that our love, our patience, or our sacrifice will transform someone else. But the truth is, transformation is an inside job. People don't change because we want them to. They change because life forces them, pain teaches them, or wisdom awakens them. And until then, they will remain exactly as they are. When we expect them to change on our timeline, do you know what happens? We keep waiting, waiting, waiting. And in the process, we lose years of our own life. Imagine sitting in a room, staring at a seed and saying, grow faster, grow faster. The seed will not obey your emotions. It will take its own time. In the same way, people will not bend to your wishes just because you desperately want them to. The danger is that while we are waiting for someone else's growth, we often stop our own growth. We pause our joy, our peace, our progress because we've tied it to somebody else's behavior. And then one day we look back and realize our whole life became a waiting room. So my friends, don't waste your years hoping that people will change for you. Love them, accept them, inspire them, but don't build your happiness on the fragile hope that one day they'll wake up as a brand new person. That day may never come. And if it does, it won't be because of your waiting. It will be because of their decision. Instead, build your joy around your own choices. Because when you grow, when you shine, when you rise, you give others the courage to rise too. That's how true change spreads. Not through waiting, but through living. My dear friends, the second truth is this: the more you expect others to change, the more disappointment you invite into your life. Expectation is like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. You think it's filled with gifts, but when you open it, it's only filled with bricks. And those bricks are frustration, anger, and sadness. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, if only he speaks more kindly, I'll be happy. If only she becomes more caring, I'll feel loved. If only my friend or colleague respects me, I'll feel valued. We put conditions on our happiness, and those conditions rest on the shoulders of people who may not even know they're carrying them. And when they don't behave according to our script, we feel betrayed. But the reality is, they never agreed to act in our play. Expectation is like handing someone else the pen and saying, please write my happiness story for me. But what if they're careless with the pen? What if they drop it? What if they write something you don't like? You'll feel cheated. Yet, you're the one who gave them the pen in the first place. The biggest irony is that the people we expect the most from are usually the ones closest to us. Family, friends, partners. And because we love them so deeply, we unconsciously raise the bar of expectation so high that no one can reach it. Then every time they fall short, we feel crushed. We don't see that we've created our own suffering. When we constantly expect people to change, we create a mental picture of how they should be. But life doesn't work according to should. Life works according to reality. And when reality doesn't match the picture in our mind, frustration is born. The wider the gap between expectation and reality, the deeper the pain. Let me give you an example. Suppose you invite a friend to your home for dinner. You prepare their favorite meal, decorate the table, even set aside your evening. You expect gratitude, appreciation, maybe a warm thank you. But your friend eats, looks at their phone, and leaves without much reaction. What happens to you? You feel hurt. Not because of what they did, but because of what you expected. Your expectation was like a balloon floating in the air, and reality came and popped it. Expectation is a thief. It steals your peace before anyone else does. It takes away the joy of the present moment and ties it to a future scenario that may never happen. It makes you blind to what someone is giving you because you're too focused on what they are not giving you. So, my friends, the solution is not to stop loving, not to stop caring, not to stop hoping. The solution is to transform expectation into appreciation. Instead of demanding that people change to fit your idea of happiness, learn to value them for who they already are. You'll be surprised. When you remove the burden of expectation, relationships breathe. They become lighter, freer, more genuine. In the end, life is too short to live in the prison of they should. Let go of should, embrace ease. And you will taste a freedom that no one can take away from you. My dear friends, life is short. It sounds simple, even obvious, but how often do we really pause to feel the weight of that truth? We live as if we have an endless supply of days, as if tomorrow will always come, as if waiting for someone else to change won't cost us much. But time is the most precious resource we have, and every second spent waiting is a second that never returns. Think about it. When we were children, a year felt like forever. Summer vacations stretched endlessly. Birthdays seemed to take ages to come around. But as we grow older, time starts moving faster. Days blur into weeks, weeks blur into months, and before we realize it, years have gone by. And in those years, how much of our joy did we postpone? How many times did we say, I'll be happy when they finally change, I'll feel peace. When they finally understand, I'll start living when they finally behave differently. But here is the reality, those tomorrows never arrive. Because while we are waiting for people to change, life is quietly moving forward. One day you look in the mirror and realize the face staring back at you has more lines, more years, but not more joy. You've grown older but not happier, because you tied your happiness to someone else's timeline. Imagine this. Suppose you are standing at a bus stop. The schedule says the bus will never come, but you still wait, hoping maybe it will appear today. You stand there in the sun, in the rain, in the cold. Other people pass by. Some take a different bus. Some start walking. Some find their own way. But you remain standing, holding on to hope that something impossible will happen. That is exactly what happens when we wait for people to change. We waste the most precious journey of our lives standing at an empty bus stop. The truth is, life doesn't pause while you wait. The clock doesn't stop ticking because your friend, your partner, your parent, or your colleague hasn't yet changed. The sun still rises, the seasons still pass, and your story continues to unfold. But instead of writing your own chapters, you keep leaving blank pages, hoping someone else will pick up the pen. One of the greatest regrets people have at the end of their lives is this: I wish I hadn't wasted so much time. Not money, not status, not success time. Time they could have spent laughing, loving, traveling, creating, serving, or simply being at peace. But instead, they spent it in waiting for apologies that never came, waiting for recognition that never arrived, waiting for people to suddenly become who they wanted them to be. My dear friends, life is too short for such waiting rooms. You don't know how many days you have left. You don't know how many breaths you are yet to take. Why then should you waste even one of them on something you cannot control? Instead, pour your time into what matters: your growth, your purpose, your joy, your contribution to others. Live in such a way that even if people around you never change, your life remains full. Because the tragedy is not that people don't change. The tragedy is that we waste our lives waiting for them to. Don't let your days slip away in hope of a tomorrow that may never come. Use them today, fully, deeply, beautifully, because life is short and every moment is a treasure. My dear friends, when it comes to people, influence works far better than force. So many of us fall into the trap of thinking that if we push hard enough, argue long enough, or demand strongly enough, the other person will finally change. But what usually happens? The more we push, the more they resist. The more we force, the more they close their hearts. And we are left exhausted, wondering why all our effort only created distance instead of closeness. Think about it. Have you ever been nagged, maybe by a parent, a spouse, a teacher, or a boss? The more they repeated the same demand, the less motivated you felt to actually do it. You might have even done the opposite, just to prove you had your own will. That's human nature. Nobody likes being pushed. Nobody likes being told what to do over and over again. When you try to force change, you create rebellion. When you try to inspire change, you create willingness. True influence doesn't come from pressure, it comes from presence. It comes from the way you live, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. If you want your children to be kind, don't shout at them to be kind. Show them kindness in your daily life. If you want your partner to be more understanding, don't keep repeating, "You don't understand me." Instead, model what deep understanding looks like. If you want your colleagues to respect you, don't demand respect. Earn it by the way you respect them first. There is a story about a man who wanted his son to stop eating too much sugar. He tried scolding him, bribing him, and even threatening him, but nothing worked. Finally, he took the boy to a wise teacher and said, "Please tell my son to stop eating sugar." The teacher looked at the boy and said, "Come back in 2 weeks." The father was confused, but he waited. After 2 weeks, they returned. The teacher looked at the boy and said, "Stop eating sugar." The boy nodded seriously. The father asked, "Why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago?" The teacher smiled and said, "Because 2 weeks ago, I myself was eating sugar. I couldn't tell him to stop until I had stopped." That is influence. People don't listen to what you say, they watch how you live. Words can argue, but example convinces. You can shout at someone to change, but your example will whisper, to them every day in a language their heart understands. And let us remember, influence requires patience. You cannot plant a seed and expect a tree the next morning. You water it, you give it sunlight, you nurture it, and slowly, silently, it begins to grow. In the same way, when you want to inspire change, you may not see immediate results. But if you keep shining, if you keep living your values, your presence becomes like sunlight, soft, steady, and life-giving. Over time, it transforms. So my friends, stop wasting your energy on arguments that go in circles. Stop exhausting yourself by trying to control people. Instead, shift your focus to becoming so authentic, so consistent, and so inspiring in your own life that others naturally feel drawn to rise as well. You may not be able to change everyone, but you can influence more people through your quiet example than through 1,000 loud demands. Because in the end, influence lasts, but force only creates resistance. My dear friends, when someone's behavior is hurting you, the solution is not to keep waiting, not to keep blaming, not to keep hoping that one day they will magically wake up and change. The solution is to set clear boundaries. Blame keeps you stuck in the past, waiting keeps you stuck in the future, but boundaries allow you to live in the present with dignity. So many people confuse acceptance with tolerating abuse. They think, if I accept people as they are, then I must endure whatever they do. That is not acceptance, that is self-neglect. Acceptance means you see people clearly, without illusions. And if you see that their behavior is unhealthy, then part of acceptance is also accepting your responsibility to protect your peace. Boundaries are how you do that. Think of it like living in a house. If you leave all the doors and windows open, anyone can walk in, friends, strangers, even thieves. Some may bring gifts, but others may cause damage. You wouldn't say, well, I must accept whoever enters. No, you lock the doors, you choose who you allow inside, you create rules for your space. In the same way, your heart, your mind, your time, and your energy are your inner home. Boundaries are the locks and gates that keep that home safe. Without boundaries, resentment grows. You keep giving, they keep taking. You keep forgiving, they keep repeating. And inside, you begin to burn. You say to yourself, why don't they see my sacrifice? Why don't they respect me? But here's the truth. They may never see it. Respect doesn't come from waiting for others to change. Respect comes from teaching others how to treat you by the standards you set and maintain. Boundaries are not walls. Walls keep everyone out. Boundaries allow love in, but stop harm at the door. For example, if someone constantly speaks to you with disrespect, you don't need to wait for them to magically become polite. You can calmly say, I cannot continue this conversation if you speak to me this way. That is not rejection. That is direction. If a friend constantly borrows money and never returns it, you don't need to fight or wait. You simply stop lending. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will drive others away. But the opposite is true. Boundaries don't destroy relationships, they define them. The people who truly value you will adjust. They will respect your limits. The ones who don't respect them are the ones who would have drained you endlessly anyway. Boundaries reveal who really cares and who only uses. And do you know what else boundaries do? They free you from bitterness. Because when you set them, you no longer need to complain. You no longer need to nag. You no longer need to secretly hope for change. You've taken action. You've drawn the line. You've chosen peace. Suddenly, you stop feeling like a victim and start living as the guardian of your own life. So, my dear friends, Instead of endlessly waiting for others to change or endlessly blaming them for not changing, choose the higher path. Draw boundaries that protect your values, your time, your heart, and your energy. When you do that, you discover that you don't need to control others. You only need to honor yourself. And when you honor yourself, the right people will honor you too. My dear friends, instead of demanding change in others, the real power lies in investing in becoming the best version of yourself. So often, we are busy looking outward, pointing fingers, waiting for this person to be kinder, that person to be more disciplined, another person to be more honest. But rarely do we pause and ask, am I becoming the person I expect others to be? It is easy to complain. It is easy to criticize. It is easy to wait. But growth begins the day we turn the mirror toward ourselves and say, let me work on me. Because here's the truth. You cannot change the world by nagging it, but you can inspire the world by changing yourself. Think of it like a candle. One candle doesn't tell the darkness, please become brighter so that I can see. No, a candle simply lights itself. And in doing so, it gives light to everyone around. In the same way, when you start working on your patience, your discipline, your kindness, your wisdom, others can't help but feel its warmth. They may not change instantly, but your growth creates a ripple effect. Many times in relationships, people say, if only he or she changes, this marriage will work. If only my parents were more understanding, I'd be happy. If only my boss were less harsh, I'd be at peace. But what if you decided, I will change first, I will grow first, I will cultivate resilience, understanding, and compassion in me. Even if the other person never shifts, you will find yourself living at a higher level of peace. And often, surprisingly, your growth silently inspires theirs. The problem with waiting for others to change is that it puts your life on hold. But focusing on your own growth is never a waste. If you learn a new skill, strengthen your health, deepen your spirituality, or build emotional maturity, none of that ever goes to waste. It enriches you, and no one can take it away. Imagine two people in a boat. The boat has a leak. One person keeps yelling, "Fix it! Fix it!" Why aren't you doing anything? The other person ignores him. If you keep waiting for the other person to act, the boat will sink and both of you will drown. But if you take responsibility, if you patch your side, if you do what you can, at least you've given the boat a chance to stay afloat. That is life. Don't wait for someone else to row, to patch, to lead. Take charge of your own side of the boat. And here's another truth. When you shift the focus to yourself, life feels lighter. You no longer live with the frustration of trying to manage people like puppets. You learn the joy of self-mastery. And let me tell you, my friends, mastering yourself is far more rewarding than attempting to master someone else. Because once you conquer yourself, nothing outside can shake you. So stop asking, when will they change? And start asking, how can I grow? Stop waiting for others to show up differently and start showing up as the highest version of you. Because in the end, people may or may not transform, but if you keep growing, your life will never be wasted. My dear friends, peace begins the day you accept people as they are, not as you wish them to be. This is one of the hardest lessons in life, yet one of the most liberating. Because deep down, we all carry a picture in our minds of how people should behave. Parents should understand us. Children should listen to us. Friends should support us. Partners should love us in exactly the way we want to be loved. Colleagues should respect us. Neighbors should be considerate. The list is endless. But reality rarely matches the picture we paint. People don't always listen, they don't always care, they don't always understand. And the more we resist this truth, the more restless we become. Imagine holding a rope with both hands and pulling it as hard as you can, while someone else is pulling just as hard from the other side. The tension burns your palms, the struggle drains your energy, and the rope never truly comes into your control. That rope, my friends, is our expectations of people. The tighter we pull, the more it hurts us. The moment we let go, the pain disappears. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything someone does. It doesn't mean you agree with their behavior or that you must tolerate what is harmful. Acceptance means acknowledging reality as it is instead of constantly fighting with it in your head. It means saying, this is who they are right now. I may wish they were different, but wishing will not make it so. And in that simple acknowledgement, your heart begins to relax. Think about how much energy we waste replaying conversations in our minds. He should have spoken to me differently. She should have respected me more. They should have supported me when I needed them. Hours, sometimes days, of inner drama over what should have been, but never was. That drama steals our peace. But when you accept the drama ends, you no longer wrestle with should. You work with ease. A powerful example is nature. Do we get angry at the rain for falling? Do we yell at the sun for being too hot? Do we scream at the ocean for having waves? No, we accept them as they are. We may use an umbrella, wear sunscreen, or learn to swim, but we don't expect the rain to stop being rain or the ocean to stop being ocean. In the same way, when we learn to see people as forces of nature, unique, unpredictable, sometimes stormy, sometimes calm, we stop wasting energy demanding that they act according to our forecast. Acceptance gives birth to freedom. It allows you to live peacefully with the imperfections of others because you've made peace with reality itself. And ironically, when people feel accepted, when they sense you're not constantly pushing them to change, they're more likely to soften, to open, and sometimes even to grow. But whether they do or not, your peace is no longer hostage to their behavior. My dear friends, life is too precious to be lived in resistance. Imagine how light your heart would feel if you could say, I accept them as they are, and I will decide how to respond. That shift alone transforms frustration into peace. So stop waiting for the world to bend to your expectations. Instead, bend your perspective to embrace the world as it is. That is where true peace begins. My dear friends, one of the greatest lessons we can learn in life is this: you cannot control others, but you can always choose your response. Most of our frustration comes from trying to control what we were never meant to control: the thoughts, actions, and behaviors of other people. We shout, we argue, we plead, we manipulate, we pray, we bargain, but in the end, people do what they want to do. And every time they don't act according to our script, we feel betrayed. But the truth is, they were never holding our script in the first place. Control is an illusion. Think about it. You can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. You can't control how many years you'll live. So why do we imagine that we can control another human being with their own mind, their own will, their own journey? Trying to control others is like trying to hold water in your fists. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. But here's where the power lies. Though you cannot control them, you can always control yourself. You can choose your words, your actions, your mindset, your energy. You can choose whether you will respond with anger or with calm, with bitterness or with grace, with despair or with hope. That choice is always yours, and no one can ever take it away. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are driving and someone cuts you off recklessly. In that moment, you cannot control their behavior. But you have two choices. You can slam the horn, roll down the window, scream at them, let your blood pressure rise, and ruin your whole day. Or you can take a deep breath, let them go, and protect your peace. The event is the same, but the experience is entirely different depending on your response. This is the same in relationships. Maybe your partner isn't as attentive as you want. Maybe your friend isn't as reliable as you hoped. Maybe your boss isn't as fair as you expected. You can't make them change on demand, but you can choose whether you will keep waiting bitterly or whether you will focus on building your own joy. You can choose whether you will sink into self-pity or rise into self-growth. When you shift from control to choice, life becomes lighter. Instead of asking, why are they like this? You start asking, how will I respond to this? And that question puts the power back in your hands. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the author of your own life. The world is full of people who spend their whole lives trying to fix others, but die without ever fixing themselves. Don't let that be your story. Control is exhausting, choice is liberating. Control creates conflict, choice creates clarity. Control says, they must change for me to be happy. Choice says, I will choose happiness regardless of whether they change. So, my dear friends, the next time someone disappoints you, pause before reacting. Remember, you can't control their behavior, but you can always choose your response. And in that choice lies your peace, your strength, and your freedom.